Really, in hemp, one of the best lessons, or one of the most valuable lessons I've realized, is the value of in a relationship of trust and authenticity. And
Right now, when I keep asking myself, why'd we go on like this long? And, we think pretty successfully. And so those are my answers: the vulnerability and these two people listening to each other.
Well, we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. It's awesome to be together again and excited to spend time with Tracy and Barnett and talk a little bit about mentorship. And I know there are a lot of folks on this call who mentor all the time, informally or formally, others, around this town, and they do a great job of that. But it's come up several times, really, even in the last 3 weeks. I've probably had 3 different meetings and conversations where people talked about how difficult it was leading their organization, and they couldn't really talk about their challenges and their struggles with the people on their teams. And so who do they go to? And we got to talk about the value of mentorship. And Barnett's story is just one that's powerful. So I'm going to hand it over to Tracy and let her talk a little bit about mentorship, and talk to Barnett and ask a few questions. And as you have questions, type them in the chat and we'll unmute you and bring you in. So Tracy, why don't you take it from here?
Well, thank you. It's been fun participating in your Lessons in Leadership series and hearing from so many people, and a little bit intimidating when I got the invitation to participate. But nonetheless, my good friend Barnett has some great information to share, and certainly a lot of stories. But also, like you said, Randy, we'd really like to answer any questions people have. So you said they're going to type them in the chat, and then you'll help facilitate us getting those and answering those, correct?
Yes, sure will. I'll keep an eye on that and unmute folks, and we'll get them in.
Terrific. As I was thinking about today, and really leadership, we all read a lot of books about business and think about leadership. And one of the common threads in all of those books is typically that, leaders get people to follow them, and they do a good job of that. But when I was thinking about my experience with hemp, I realized how limiting that definition is, and how that really doesn't take at all advantage of human potential. And really, in hemp, one of the best lessons, or one of the most valuable lessons I've realized, is the value of in a relationship of trust and authenticity. And in hemp, that is something that's at the core of what we believe really empowers our leaders, our mentors, our mentees, and our fellows to be their true selves. And Barnett, I thought that would be a great lead-in for my first question for you. Can you share the story of the meeting in your lower level of your home, and how one person's story changed the trajectory of that meeting?
Yes. We had a number of, potential, we thought, mentors, business people, business leaders. And the second or third one to talk was Barney Carbank. Barney Carbank was a legendary real estate success who had been crippled by polio at age 2. And instead of just telling some standard success story, he opened up about a 2-year-old kid trying to keep up with the other kids, and his whole real life story. And what it did, it created an atmosphere of openness and honesty. I remember Manny said that they wouldn't let him in the meal box because he was Mexican. and so on. People really opened up, and it was almost magical. And we had planned a break. Harvey Thomas, who was a psychologist extraordinaire and friend, and had been we talked about this idea for years, and we had planned a break, and I said, Harvey, I know why you didn't have the break. Why? It was magic going on. Everybody was really opening up, and amazingly enough, we videoed and recorded that session.
Yeah, so just to back up a little bit, that meeting in Barnett's basement, or the lower level as his wife Shirley likes to call it, was really him bringing together some amazing people and having a conversation about how do we get this mentoring program off the ground. And so Mr. Carbank's openness and honesty and vulnerability shown really set the stage for the organization as a whole. Barnett, in backing up a little bit, because not everybody in this knows, what inspired you to start HEMP?
One of my mentors was Ewing Kaufman, and I would just go to him when I, had a question or problem. And when I thanked him one day, he said, that's okay, you'll help somebody someday. And it took some years, but the germ was planted, and then quickly I went around town asking all these people if this was possible, and most of them patted me on the head and said, fine. A couple of them said, you can't do this. And all of a sudden, after 2 years of harassing many people, I, enjoyed talking to people. I had a luncheon with Bill Eddy and Rich Davis and so on, and they said, we want you to run a gala. And I said, you know what? I think you probably picked the worst person in the country to run a gala. That's not my deal at all. And Eddie turns to me and says, well, maybe you can start a mentoring program. It was like lightning. I looked in the mirror the next morning. I said, all right, put up or shut up. Quit bothering all these people. Either do it or don't. Enough. And so that was kind of the electricity got it started.
How long was your relationship with Mr. Kaufman?
23 years.
You tell the story, Barnett, about your father and how he, even prior to your relationship with Mr. Kaufman, about how he had a relationship with a mentor, and that also inspired you. Can you maybe tell a little bit about that and how that
You talk about my dad's mentor?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a great story. I love it, and it's example of mentoring to me. Well, he loved this attorney who was wonderful, Arthur Magg. It was Stinson Magg. And my dad, he's got a little black pad by his bed, and he's waking up over and over all night, writing down, he's going to talk to Magg about this and talk about that. Well, so he goes to Magg and he says, okay, I got 10 questions. Here's the first. And Magg called him Barney. He said, well, Barney, what do you think? Of course, my dad would tell him what he thought. And he would say, well, Barney, that sounds good. Of course, my dad ends up answering all the questions. And then he, of course, says, why the hell do I pay you $100 an hour? I gave all the answers. And I think what I like about that is, I think the mentor's job is really to get it out of the mentee. There's some kind of magic in, I don't know, it just kind of works. And interesting, Kaufman, one of the things he preached was he would use the words, well, tell me your idea. Just the same as Mag did. So I think the answer is to be the question person, not the answer person.
So hemp has been around for 25 years, and we've had over 200 businesses be involved in this amazing program. I think it's really fun to share the story of, so you came up with the idea, you've recruited a number of amazing people to agree to potentially mentor, but now you have to find some potential mentees. How did you go about finding your first mentees?
I'm not sure. I really don't remember very vividly. Well, wait a minute. I do. Somehow, yeah, that's right. So my wife was the head of the symphony for about 18 years. And of course, it was New Year's Eve and they had a big gathering. And Danny O'Neill was, as he always did to build his company, giving coffee away. So I walked up to him and I said, Danny, we're thinking of starting this mentoring program for entrepreneurs. Would you be interested? I've had my eyes on you. And he looks at me, he says, well, I've had my eyes on you. You've had 3 cups of decaf. But we always got along well. And the other one was Rick Kriska, who heard about it at a UMK or maybe a Kaufman meeting. And they were the first 2. And of course, I've always told the story that I've always felt very indebted to them, because what they taught us was that we couldn't take people with pulses. We had to get some standards. And of course, they were great guys. But anyway, I guess that's how it kind of got started.
Tracy, you want to take a couple questions?
Yeah, sure. Happy to.
Why don't we go to Steve?
Yeah, good morning. We often talk with groups about coaching, and they will very frequently use mentoring synonymously with the term coaching. I don't know that they're different, or I don't think they're or I do think they're different. Do you think they're different? If you think they are, how are they different? And does the difference really matter?
It's a great question. I'll start, and then Barnett, if you'll add to. So your question is there a difference between mentoring and coaching? And, I think in the business context, which is really what we're talking about here, how we look at it at HEMP is one of the things that we value and think the value of mentoring, the mentoring program in HEMP is that our mentors have no personal involvement, no stake in the company, truly nothing financially or anything else to gain by mentoring this individual. Our mentors are truly volunteers who are there with the sole purpose of supporting, coaching, helping, assisting our mentees and for their personal and professional growth. So I think that's different within, there's also mentoring programs within a company, right? Where you have a mentor who's assigned within that company. And oftentimes I think that defines some of the boundaries of a relationship. But in my personal opinion, I don't think there's a big difference between mentoring and coaching in the work that we do, other than our belief in our mentorship program is, like Barnett said earlier, we're really there to help our mentees realize their full potential beyond what they even think they're capable of. And that's more about, sharing our experiences. And I'll talk a little bit about this later on when timing is right, about some of our philosophies, and sharing our own experiences and our own failures, not just our own successes, and helping boost people up from there. So Barnett, what is your thought about the difference between coaching and mentoring?
Well, frankly, it would be quite different. When I look back at myself, I sure needed some coaching that I didn't get and needed. So to me, my interpretation of the coach would be that they give you some direction. And my interpretation of mentoring is, in a perfect world, like Mr. Mag got it out of my dad, the answer already lies within the mentee. I made, some really, people think, oh, the guy's successful. Well, maybe so, but probably did a lot of screw ups along the way, maybe went over 50% good, but I sure could have used some coaching and hadn't even heard of it and so on. So anyway, I see him, frankly, pretty differently because I think I needed it so much and didn't have it. Never heard the term in those days.
Yeah, so coaching, giving more advice, and mentoring, getting the mentee to help.
Exactly.
With the answers. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Randy?
Go to Drew.
Steve, that was a great question. Barnett, it's great seeing you again. I doubt you remember, but when I retired out of the military, a good friend of mine, actually, you were one of the first people that he introduced me to, and I got to sit down with you. And I will tell you that the vision, mission, and goals that you talked about our city clearly gives the leadership aspect of the seed that I think makes this city so great. I'm from Florida, wife's from New York. What the heck am I doing in Kansas City? It is an inspiring city because everybody really, the mentorship seed that you've planted is quite impressive, and I see it promulgated throughout this city. And I thank you for the initial guidance that you've given me and what you have done for our city. The question about mentor and mentee and finding a mentee, 28 years in the military, the Army tried real hard to assign mentors, which I thought was an epic fail. It's just, the mentee has to have a vote in that. You have to have somebody that you respect. But really, to add on to what Steve asked, your idea that a coach provides direction and a mentor provides thought is pretty impressive. So can a coach become the mentor is sort of what I learned in the Army, and the giving back from the mentor who's always said to me, somewhere down the line, you're going to pass this forward, right? So I think that's a solicited response that we've all heard from our mentors over our lives. But do you believe that the mentee should really be the one who decides who their mentor is, or is it something that can be worked out outside of their real desires at that point in time?
Well, I tell you what we go through, and we're so impossible, difficult to let people in that we got very, very great, amazing people. And one of my theories, which we don't follow at all, is you could use a dartboard with these kind of people. But we go through a lot of steps on the matching. Everybody has a psychological test, and then we have a speed dating affair, and then the mentee and mentor fill out forms of who their choices are. And so, we go through a lot, and very few matchups are really, where they both wrote down the same name. But I feel like you got the right kind of people, it's going to work. And maybe that's Pollyanna, but anyway, I just feel if with people this kind of generosity and goodwill and desire, it's probably going to work. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work every time, definitely. So we have no fault divorces. Every year we'll have 2 maybe replacements. And usually that works, but sometimes nothing works. And the person isn't mentorable. We've misjudged. And so, they drop out, or they divorce us, or we divorce them. But it's pretty amazing to me that every year, it's 11, 12, 15, maybe 20 mentees, and 1 or 2 will be replaced. But the favorite story is a young lady who I've known all her life, Missy Wang Love. Well, I was, of course, thrilled because I've known her all her life. She joined HEMP. She runs a fur store. And she called and said, this is the wrong mentor. It's just not going to work. I'm a marketer, and he's financial, and blah, blah, blah. And whoever was the head of HEMP's office said, okay, that's fine. We'll change it, but give it a couple of months. P.S. They end up getting married. And he did end up being her mentor. But anyway, it's kind of been fascinating. The matchups are amazing, and I hear people talk about, this was not somebody I wanted, or wrote on my list of 3, but it's just been great. So I think it's the kind of people has a lot to do with it.
It's been interesting. Over 25 years, this is the part of the program that, like everything we do, we try to continue to improve. And a couple of things that we've learned about matching mentors and mentees is it's a lot more about the personality and than it is industry experience. We actually try not to match like people from the same industries, because what we found is they'll talk shop a lot and not get to the core of what the potential real issues, problems, or opportunities are that they want to talk about. And then, like Barnett said, it really does reduce the pressure if there's no fault divorce. At the end of the day, if you just can't make it work, it doesn't seem to be like you're able to develop the type of relationship you need to make that work, then we're certainly there to help find and identify another. And I think that becomes, Drew, a little bit more difficult outside of the confines of a program like HEMP, right? Because you don't have a pool of people sitting and waiting who have already been vetted and are willing and interesting and, most importantly, committed to a mentorship relationship. So it becomes a little bit more difficult outside the confines of a program like HEMP. But I would encourage people to expand their search beyond just the people they know, and work hard to make sure they find a right mentor.
Tracy and Barnett, when someone has started their own business from scratch or bought a business and grown it and reached a certain level of success, it would be easy to have a certain level of self-reliance and independence. How do you help one determine that they have that humility to actually become coachable or mentorable? Because it is a mind shift change of I've done this, I've built this, I've made it, but to take it to the next level, I actually need to humble myself a little bit and be willing to learn.
You know, part of the process we go through in, in interviewing the mentee applicants who come to us is asking questions specifically centered around, are you mentorable or coachable, and are you interested? The HEMP program is a 3-year commitment. And that in the upfront, we have an extensive application that's filled out. And then you go through in-person interviews. So it's a pretty complex process. So by the time they come into our interview process, most of them are, willing and interested and committed to participate, knowing everything that they know about it. But still, during the interview process, we ask a lot of questions. And if someone just always has all the answers and, we have a group of us, it's not just an interview with one person, it's typically on site outside of the parameters of COVID, of course. But so we have an on-site interview at their business. We typically get to see what they're about, the people around them, how they react to them, and while we're there and during that questioning. And every now and then you get someone, like you said, Randy, who just has all the answers, and that's not necessarily the right person for us. But truly, most people who come to us who've gone through that entire process are very interested and willing to be mentorable. But still, it takes time. And so for the mentors in our program, we also have some support on that first, 90, 120 days of a relationship. And Harry, you can talk about this. We really spend a lot of time just developing a rapport and trust between the two. And the mentor getting to learn and understand the individual. And in taking that kind of time to do that, I think that really helps someone open up. And then, of course, sharing our own vulnerabilities. We have 4, we call them spirits of the big guy, kind of our core tenets of our program. And those 4 are confidentiality. First and foremost, every conversation within HEMP is considered confidential. Even if someone doesn't say, oh, this is confidential, if anyone's sharing something with you about their business or themselves or anything, before you can share that information with someone else, you need to ask that person specifically, is it okay if I talk to, Joe about this and get his perspective? So confidentiality is one. And then second, it's this concept called the worst foot forward, right? We all have great days, and, it's not about just saying, here, how are you doing today, Tracy? Well, it's a great day. My business is good. I feel good. Well, there's probably a lot more to it than that. So let's put our worst foot forward. Let's talk about, what scares us as a business owner today. Let's talk about the fact that, I'm worried I may not make payroll on Friday. And vice versa, the mentor is there to share their failures, not just their successes. And in that really helps support the relationship. And third is we want your soul. And this one has, an interesting connotation, right? We want your soul. It kind of sets you back a little bit, could even have a bit of a religious meaning, but that's not what we're asking. What we want your soul is all about commitment. So if you're going to participate in HEMP as a mentee and a mentor, we're asking for your commitment. When you're here, we're asking for your time, attention, and your serious commitment to wanting to participate and be better and to grow through the program. And then number 4, keep HEMP fun. You know, all of you seen Barnett's jacket. Barnett, show them your jacket you're wearing right now. You know, this is all part of keeping hemp fun. I mean, life is serious, business is hard, it can be lonely, but you know what? Let's also have fun. And we try really hard to do that. So.
Well, I don't see any other questions right now. Tracy, do you have any more questions for Barnett?
Always, always. So, you know, Barnett, do you want to share any examples of success stories within the program? You think that would help? I've got some quotes I thought from some of our participants that I think are really good representatives of and answer some of the questions. I'll start with one, and then Barnett, I'll ask you to share kind of your thoughts as well. You know, one of the quotes is, it says, mentoring is really simple. It's not about what the mentor knows. It's about helping the mentee define and achieve their goals by listening, not to the first or the easy answer, but exploring what really matters. What do you think?
I think that's very good. I don't say I lost him. He was in his 90s, and I was very blessed to have his wisdom. A man who passed away recently called Ted Cohn. But at his funeral, I guess you'd call it that, it was really 2 hours, which is normally, I don't last very long at funerals. Mine is 30 minutes, and if my wife's late, I don't give a damn. You start on time, you end on time, and that's the maximum time. And anyway, it was so interesting. So all these people spoke, and this one young man, he said, you know, I had very little contact with Ted, but when I visited with him, he said, now, what course do you like the best? And then he would dig in and say, why? So I will tell you that, frankly, and it's actually this spring 26 years old, and I keep asking myself, why this thing go on? Why do it work? I don't understand it. For me, it's too good to be true. And I read a lot of stuff, and you know, I change my mind, my thoughts. But here's the 2 things that I wrote up that I thought, well, maybe this explains it. And you mentioned the word vulnerability, and part of that is put your worst foot forward. The other part is that we encourage the mentor to put their worst foot forward. And what this thing I read was that mutual vulnerability builds a bond. And so, you know, that's like, I'll tell you who I really am in a way. The other part that I have focused on and you know, thought, well, maybe this is the other reason. There's a saying you've probably heard, and the saying is, to be listened to is so much close to being loved that most people can't tell the difference. And you've heard stories of people that start crying because they feel nobody's ever listened to them before, and they're being listened to. Here's a mentee who's got a mentor that is really listening. And here's a mentor who is listening to the challenges of the mentee. So right now, when I keep asking myself, why'd we go on like this long, and we think pretty successfully. And so those are my answers: the vulnerability and these two people listening to each other. It's such a honor. You hear these people say, "Oh, I love talking to him because I'm the only person in the world when I talk to him," as opposed to you go to a party and there's no eye contact. They're looking around for a better offer. And anyway, that's all I've been able to figure out. I've always wondered why it's worked out.
And, just to add a little bit on that, Barnett, and Harry, you can add to this too with your experience. So one of the things that, HEMP does or works hard to do is to support and foster those types of relationships and feelings when you enter a room. In addition to a 3-year mentoring one-on-one relationship, we also have education sessions. Sometimes we'll just have panels of experts in on different areas where people can ask. But when you walk into that room, there are certain things that you know that there's going to be other people who are like you in that room, and it's going to be confidential. So you don't have to worry about, someone sharing that, you were there and you said this, so you can kind of relax a little bit and smile. And then there's going to be some of your favorite things around the room that you've come to know. So we know that we have our infamous green smoothie. We've got some of our favorite treats are, these roasted peanuts or these chocolate covered peanuts, and just these different favorites from participants in HEMP that really help to set the stage and to welcome everyone into an environment where they can feel comfortable and do the things that Barnett's talking about. Have a conversation one-on-one, share how they're feeling, and ask some questions and feel supported. Harry, do you think that's true?
Yes, 100%. My experience has been very similar to what you talked about. And let me give you a little backstory. I was in my mid-50s before I was even willing to entertain doing this, because I didn't really know what to expect and how it was going to benefit me personally. And so I avoided hemp. Then a couple of years ago, I finally, I would say, started investigating, and I loved it. And I'll tell you, when I went to choose a mentor, it's kind of like fraternity or sorority, like sorority rush, by the way. When my daughter went through it at Indiana University, she had to interview and figure out the 3 places she wanted, and she hoped that one of those 3 wanted her, and you end up making sure it's mutual. To find a mentee, I actually had 3 questions, and this is not something that Tracy or Barnett have ever asked me about, but this is what I was looking for, with the number one goal of, I am horrified to waste my time. I'll just tell you all that. So I had 3 questions that I had as a lens to get the mentee, and I think it goes to people starting businesses, not just a mentor-mentee relationship. I wanted someone who was willing to listen, someone who had a drive to learn, and a want to grow. That was my simple approach to saying, who do I want? There were 20 mentees. I met 12 of them for coffee or drinks. In the speed dating night, I met the other 8, and I wrote down my 3. I think the person I ended up with, Dan Holmgren, is a perfect fit for me. Dan has all those things I'm looking for. The relationship we've built is extraordinary. The other day, he was 5 minutes from doing a huge presentation to try to get a big piece of business. And he called me And I realized afterwards, I wouldn't say this to Dan, but he just wanted me to hold his hand for a moment. He's kick-ass and he was going to do well, but he just wanted me to say, you got this. And I thought, that's cool. That didn't have anything to do with Harry's experiences or Harry's this or Harry that. I'm the person that he looks to, that knows him and can encourage him and or kick his ass when he needs it. And he needs it a lot. He knows that. And so this organization is so supportive of that. And there's an infrastructure around it. I'm not a rule follower and I'm horrible at administrative work. The organization that Barnett and Tracy have founded and fostered is extraordinary with regard to the support it provides to make sure the mentees win. And Dan Holmgren's business, he's in Wamego, Kansas. He does user experience and custom technology. They've gone from 20 to 30 people. They've doubled their business, and he is absolutely crushing it because he is open and willing to be vulnerable and put his worst foot forward. I'm having so much fun, I can't stand it. I'm actually worried I'm not going to get a good mentee the next one. And so I'm like, I bet I got to figure out what that looks like, because Dan's going to roll off in about 6 or 9 months, and we'll stay in touch, but I'll get a new one. I love the infrastructure and purpose that we have, that we're driving to make Kansas City better via the right people.
David is flying down the road and somehow managed to raise his hand. Let's see if he can unmute too.
I was at a stoplight, unfortunately. I apologize, Randy. I missed some of the beginning of the session today. But the question I had is, I'm not sure if we discussed the difference between coaching and mentoring, and the roles of a coach versus the role of a mentor, and the difference between the role of someone being coached and someone who's a protege.
Tracy, you want to just build on that again a minute for David? Or
Yeah, sure. I'll start and then have Barnett fill in. We did talk about this, and it's a really good question. Within the context of our program, one of the key differences between mentoring and coaching is we have, as a mentor in our program there, you have no stake in the mentee's business whatsoever other than being their mentor and complete outside party, interested solely in their personal and professional success. And so that's a little bit different in other mentor-mentee relationships or coach, relationships. And also what we talked about, and Barnett, you can expand on this, but we talked about the difference being a coach really helps, tells you sometimes what to do and how to do it, in addition to, motivating you to do it. As a mentor, we're oftentimes asking questions and probing and helping the individual come up with the answers themselves versus necessarily instructing them how to do it. What do you think, Barnett? Did I miss part of that?
Not really. It's pretty accurate. Just for clarification, I'm a mentee, not a mentor. In fact, I'm such a bad mentor, I fired myself for a few years, and because I wanted to get back in it, I get a good partner every time and let them lead it. But no, that's it. Really, very, very accurately. I had mentors. I should have had a coach, and I made some pretty serious errors. I need someone to say, get with it on this, you're just wrong. So I look at them as very, very different.
Tracy and Barnett, if a business leader is contemplating, do I want a mentor in my life? Do I want to be that open? Do I want to be that transparent and that authentic and let someone in behind the curtain? When you look back over your career, did mentors just reaffirm your own gut feel, or do you look back and say there are really times where you might have taken wrong strategic directions or made bad decisions and a mentor really helped change your mindset about what you were going to approach?
That's a really good question. And for me, one of the things that inspired me to be part of this program was I didn't have good mentors. I had great parents and a few good friends, but really my father would, listen to me and affirm that my feelings were real. He didn't necessarily always have the best advice because as his daughter, he would just say, well, then, tell him to go to hell and leave, silly things like that. But so the mentors that I have had later in life have done much more than reaffirm my own answer. They've helped me realize that there are a lot more possibilities of options that I absolutely wasn't thinking about. And they really helped dig that out of me. So it may have been in there, but it certainly wasn't at the front of my mind. Barnett, how about you in response to that question? Do you think that a mentor just pulled the answers out of you that you had and affirmed?
Well, I like to say that. I like to believe that. It's not always true. Sometimes the mentor says, hey, you got to get 2% 10 days. You got to give them you got to get those receivables. Well, I'll tell you, Kaufman, I'll give you an example. He was my mentor. So
Can you get closer to the computer, Barnett?
You talk about me?
Yeah, thank you. Now we can hear you better.
Oh, anyway, I'll give you an example of non-mentoring by Kaufman. So he says, what's your turnover with people? I don't know. Anyway, he said, do you know what it costs you when somebody leaves a company? Well, he gets it up to about $50,000. He gets me so upset. Okay, now we're really measuring turnover, and we realize how important this is. So he was coaching then, he wasn't mentoring.
Did that answer your question, Randy?
Yeah.
Yes, that's great insight.
Thank you very much.
One of the things I wanted to mention about the program that I think is one of the reasons we're here 25 years later, and I truly believe we're going to be here another 25 years is because of a couple of things. And one, this whole philosophy of we're never done growing and getting better at what we do. And so we're working very hard, and we're really excited about what we've achieved so far and how we're going about things. It's not we don't have all of the answers, and we're not doing it in a perfect way, and we can always be better. And so we are constantly asking all of our participants to please tell us not just what you like about the program, but what don't you like, and what do you like that we can be doing more of that we're not doing. And so we're constantly improving and looking at that. And then one of the other things is, we talk about authentic relationships and developing trust and intimacy, but really that has to be, led throughout the organization. And Barnett's very humble in how he talks about how it's been everybody around him who's developed this organization. But the reality also is that Barnett's been there. Physically in the room, talking to people, truly interested in, everyone who's there. And that has set the stage. He's developed relationships with so many people and truly cares about what's going on. And it sets the stage for the rest of us when we show up that we also are there for the right reasons, and that we care about each other, and we're there to help and be true, trusting, intimate partners with the rest of our participants. So,
Tracy, I want to get a little bit of input from Melea. You built a powerful business actually several businesses, and you've had tremendous success, and yet you still reached a point where you chose to have a mentor. What was that journey like inside you to think, despite all my success, I think I could take this to another level by having some outside help? What did that look like for you?
Great question, Randy. I think I had a lot of awareness about the HEMP program over the years. Just knowing Danny O'Neill through the Casey Chamber, things like that, other people that had gone through the program. I have several clients that are in the program or mentors within the program. So that was always kind of in the back of my mind, Randy, that I wanted to hit those milestones within my businesses so that I could be eligible, right, to participate in HEMP. I think I just knew in the back of my mind the value that I would get out of it. Actually, I had one of my mentors. I do have a few other mentors that are business advisors for me, but they're not on call like my HEMP mentor is. We don't have those regular, committed meetings per month where we're investing significant time together. So they're just kind of on call, if you will. And I think that they thought that I could be a mentor, but I am so glad that I am a mentee because I am learning what it means to be a good mentor myself. And I hope to go down that path one day because I would not have been good at asking questions. I would have been good at trying to answer questions for people when they bring questions to me. So I think that through this program, I'm learning to become a better leader within my businesses as well. And I'm asking a lot more questions. That's what my mentor is teaching me. Harry, I laughed when you basically commented that it resembles a sorority rush, getting assigned to that mentor. It was that exactly. And I think those of us that are in this program that are entrepreneurs are very competitive anyway. So I had side deals going, like, if you pick me first, I'll pick you first. And I did end up getting my first choice. And he told me that I was his first choice too. So I think it did work out well. And I feel like I drew the lucky straw. Honestly, I got assigned to Grant Burcham with MoBank, formerly MoBank. And we've had 2 meetings a month for the last 8 months. And it has just been transformative for me. I've gotten so much out of those conversations. And it is true. He's asking all the right questions and forcing me to answer them. And we just had a session last week that it was on a topic that we had been discussing probably the entire 8 months. And he said, you finally got there. And I said, I finally did. And he didn't give me the answer. He let me figure it out in my brain. Took me a while. But I got there. And so I cannot say enough praise about this program. I welcome the opportunity, Barnett and Tracy, to get back to the networking events, right? I think we all want that as we're coming out of COVID now with our vaccinations. But no, it's such a valuable thing in my life, both personally and professionally. So I'm really glad that I made that leap and decided to have a mentor.
Thank you, Melea.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Megan is in the early stages of a tech startup and in the early stages of developing this path. And so I think she's got some great questions here around authenticity. Megan, you want to?
Randy, yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, my video's off. Talking about vaccinations, I got my second shot just recently. And so I'm very happy, but I am not camera ready by any means. You guys, Tracy and Barnett, you guys are seriously so inspirational. I try and practice. So I've been in kind of the fintech world for a while now, and I also have the opportunity to teach at UMKC. This year is my first year teaching freshmen, and I don't know how they don't fall down more. I love them to death, but it is just wonderful getting to talk about these real concepts with them and watching kind of their own unique thinking. And so one of the things I'm really trying to hone in on for them as young kind of professionals is the idea of social capital, finding good mentors. And we keep coming up against this roadblock of kind of imposter syndrome, for lack of a better word, right? Like they're young, they assume that we all have it figured out, little do they know. But how could, or what advice would you guys give to kind of some young professionals who are looking to really try and lead with their worst foot, and listen to their authentic self, but kind of get out there and make those relationships?
Wow, that's a really hard question. It took me, I don't want to tell you how many years before I was willing to do that. Got countless stories of of acting tough and thinking I needed to prove myself versus ever be vulnerable in front of someone because I saw that as a sign of weakness. So, and then couple that with today's times in social media and how people they share everything out there, and so you just don't know what's real and what's not real. Wow. So I think your question is, how do you encourage them to do that?
Yeah. Is there any advice, maybe even with your kind of mentors and mentees, that you give around like just cultivating those vulnerable relationships to lead to kind of, because I really think social capital pays dividends, right? Like, how do we get these young people out there?
Absolutely. I think just a couple of things come to mind, and I am certainly no expert in this area by any means, but kind of my initial reaction is, relationships take time. So, be willing to give it some time. And I would encourage everyone, I know, to be themselves, and to be honest. So when they're out there, introducing themselves and talking about themselves, don't just say, talk about everything that's great and all of their accomplishment. Take time to ask some questions and share some concerns that they have. And I think that would go a long way in terms of starting to develop a real relationship. And I think people react much more positively to that, as opposed to just, talking the whole time and sharing everything that they know. Harry?
Can I add on to that, please? This is going to be a bit therapeutic, so bear with me. I'm a catastrophic thinker and have been my entire life. And so the imposter syndrome is very real. It diminishes over time as you get old and you've been through the wars, but it's still there. And this is what I do very specifically. When I start getting that thought, what I do is I go to a place by myself, might be a walk. If I have an office, I go to an office and I ask myself 3 very specific questions. Is what just happened, or the situation I'm in, is it personal? Is it pervasive? And is it permanent? And the answer to every one of those almost every time is no, no, and no. But I have been operating as if it might be, and there's a cloud and I'm in trouble and all these bad things. And so what happens then is when I do that, I'm able to answer those questions, get quiet, and then readjust my thinking. That doesn't solve the problem, but that is how I personally have dealt with it, because it is very real to have those feelings continuously when you're a catastrophic thinker, and you have to manage it.
Harry, Travis is asking for you to type those in the chat, those questions. And I would just add to that, Megan, so much of our communication now, and I use communication loosely, is by social media and text and email, and it is so easy to be misconstrued, so easy to become harsh and hard, and so easy to want to just block out what I don't want to hear. And I would say, if not 100%, over 99% of the time, those things are taking place in my life. When I call and talk to people, it all gets better, as opposed to just fighting it out on social media. If you just call someone and say, hey, I saw you were angry about what I said. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me how you feel, and just listen. I can't think of any time that I ever walked away and it wasn't better, but it's very easy to get locked into just responding electronically because it's convenient and it's easy and we can just bang out an emoji. But that's not authentic communications as much as just talking to people and saying, hey, tell me about how you feel. It really helps. To me, it helps bring out the authenticity much better than digital communication.
One of the great things about being in Kansas City and the Midwest in general is, we live in a community where people are really interested in helping, especially the young community. So I would really encourage people to get out there and like Randy said, call, make those calls, send those emails if that's more comfortable, and have those conversations with others in the community because they're really willing and interested in helping.
If you're authentic and you're reaching out to people with a genuine interest to learn, they will take time for you. And that was one of the things that was hardest about the last year because I did a lot of my stuff with the First Watch tour of homes. I've eaten breakfast in every First Watch in Kansas City. I know what the grits and bacon are like all over this town. And so, and that's a great way to spend time with people, is to just go sit down and have breakfast, go sit down and have a lunch, go grab a coffee. And those are way more authentic opportunities to learn from each other. Well, this was powerful, Tracy and Barnett. There was a lot of great questions.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate the time and the opportunity to learn from all of you as well.
Yeah, we lost Barnett's video. I assume he's still there, but
probably yes.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Tracy and Barnett, for spending time with us and giving a little bit of information just about the value of mentoring.
All right. Thanks, Randy. And thanks all.
Everyone have an awesome week. We'll see you next week.